Welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast and another episode of Rick's Riffs. Today I'm riffing with my good friend, OWAA member, podcaster, and writer, Emanuel Rose. This is the last of a multi-part series on planning and preparing for your outdoor adventures. Today we're talking about road trips, specifically planning the perfect road trip for camping and fishing. We'll cover how to map out the best route, pack for every scenario, and ensure that you have all the right gear so you're set up for anything the road and river throw your way. Let's hit the road and get ready for adventure, 1 mile and one cast at a time. So let's talk about exploring scenic and underrated fishing spots. You and I both know our secret spots and not so secret spots anymore. Hidden gems on the West Coast. How many of those do you get to fish a lot in your area? Or even outside of the area? Do you go where there's hardly anybody there? You got to go off the path for a while to do that. But
yeah, I mean, the easiest way to find spots where nobody fishes is to take a backpack and go spend the night somewhere, right?
Exactly.
And someplace like Yosemite Park, where 80% of the people spend 4 hours there.
Yeah, so forget it. Not gonna happen.
You could go walk into the Grand Canyon of the Tuolumne and have the place to yourself.
Yeah,
because it takes 2 days to get there.
Yeah, that's like the Kern. When I guided on the Kern, there's still places where you go. If you walk upstream far enough on any stream, probably you'll find a secluded spot.
Yeah, so that's the willingness to do a little bit of chair scouting, right? Looking at the maps online and figuring out where the parking spots are and where most people are getting on the river, and then figuring out a route that maybe it's going to take an hour to walk to, but you're going to have some time to yourself. Like you say, most people are, some guys say they're lazy. I think everybody's in a hurry to get into the activity, which we all are, right? We're excited.
Right. Yeah.
We want to go fishing. We don't want to go hiking.
I came in to fish. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that hour's worth of walk, a lot of times will produce much better experience in terms of getting out away from people and getting into more game.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%. Yep. And the joy of solitude. I mean, when you get to those spots off the beaten path, it's quieter. Sometimes the fishing could be terrible. It's typical fishing. You never know what you're going to get. They're just not on that day. But the quiet solitude, you can take a nap and nobody's going to come hiking by and bother you. Strip down and jump in and do a little swimming.
Yeah, and that's not the most underrated part of it, right? It was a little time by yourself outside, listening to the wind in the trees. And,
that's where we all go. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other ways to find peace and escape the crowds by venturing off the beaten path? I mean, do you backpack a lot?
Not so much anymore. I did a lot in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Did the Tahoe to Yosemite a couple times.
Yeah, I did that too. Yeah, it's a great trip.
Oh man, amazing.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about, it doesn't take a lot to get away from everybody if you're willing to do a little bit of hiking. And I have my tick list of places where I call it, the least cost for the most wilderness. And if I can do an hour or 2 hour hike and cut off and get down to the river, then if it's a 15-minute hike off the trail to get back down to the river where it turns away, right?
Yeah.
So I have those spots and done that just by boots on the ground, and you cannot underestimate the value just getting out there and like we're saying, make mistakes and figure it out and be in an area and figure out what's going on in that area.
Yeah. There's a place up, I'm not going to say where, but it was we took mules down to get to the put-in on the river, and it was quite an adventure just to get to the put-in. And a lot of times, and then you had a beautiful 3-day wild and scenic river trip, but when we weren't guiding, we would go up there on the weekends and start not where the trips start, but we'd know some other areas where, if I walk down to this little stream drainage and then go down that drainage, follow to the river, there's going to be nobody there. And then the rafters come whipping by and they look at you and go, how the hell did you get here? And there's secret spots to find everywhere.
Yeah.
You have to, plan it and research it and, enjoy a little long hike or a short hike, steep hike, whatever it is, but it pays off in the end.
Yeah, I have a spot like that in the Trinity Alps. One of the busiest hiking areas in that area, right?
Yeah.
But the second the trail turns away from the river, I just turned left,
Yeah.
and I found this little oasis where been there. I've been there dozens of times and never seen anybody else. So
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
that's the secret. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. That's it. Be willing to go off the beaten path.
Yeah.
What about fishing in different climates? What are some strategies for adjusting your techniques in different environments? Do you go to you figure it out? Figuring it out is one way to do it. It's kind of tough sometimes. You got to change flies a billion times, but what do you do about that?
Well, let's see. So I steelhead fish and I've been, in sideways snow and that's usually in February or January. Yeah, I mean you got to be have a little bit of comfort. You got to have enough clothes and
Yeah.
the right rain gear and all that stuff to be able to weather a day through that. And the right whiskey too, usually like a Lagavulin or something a little more bite to it.
Yeah.
But then you got to also adjust. So, you get using heavier line, sink
Hmm.
tips, shooting heads, whatever, in order to get down, especially when it's colder, right? The fish are not as active. So it's usually not as lights out fishing as, say, October caddis would
Right.
be.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. October caddis on the lower sack.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then how do you handle unpredictable weather conditions camping and fishing during a road trip? Something, it wasn't, we've all been there, oh, it's going to be clear for the weekend. Wait a minute, what's this snow? We wake up and there's snow on the ground next morning. No wonder I'm so cold. What's going on?
Well, I'm sure you've been in the Sierra too when it was, even in July. I've
Yeah.
been snowed on in the Sierra.
Yeah.
So it's a form of, again, redundant systems where you're planning ahead for all the known unknowns, right? You
Yep.
know that it can snow or rain at any time, and to have at least a piece of gear to match
Yeah.
every situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where like those blue tarps are awesome because
Yep.
you can deploy that and be safe from a squall,
Yep.
3 or 4 hour squall. And there's so much great gear now in terms of really high quality, lightweight rain gear.
Yep.
You really have no excuse not to have something in your day pack or in your fishing pack that can cover you up for the eventuality.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, you should have, I always take a little stove and a canister with me too all the time because you never know. And you're right. The gear these days is so small and so light. You can have a one burner propane stove and a pot so you can at least heat water and,
Yeah,
stay warm and stay hydrated and all those things. And I worked at A16 for a handful of years and we always had the 10 essentials checklist that we handed out to people, and I
right.
still tell everybody that to this day, go look it up online, find out what those 10 essentials are and always make sure it's in your pack because
Yeah.
you never know, the shit can hit the fan anytime. And if you have that and like you say, a big tarp and another layer of clothing, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and
Fire
right,
making supplies,
just
yeah.
some kind of little Altoids can that's got a little tea candle and
Yeah.
and a lighter, and
Yeah.
you can weather 24 hours of anything with
Yeah.
if you got a fire.
And keep a good supply of those Bic lighters in your garage or your storage unit at home because matches don't always work. They sometimes get old or they break or they got wet and you didn't realize. But you
Yeah,
have a couple of Bic lighters in your bag and you'll be fine.
and that's why I like those little tea candles,
Tea candles, yep.
because they kind of work like a Duraflame log, right? You can get a lot of stuff going with those.
Yeah, and you get a little shelter going and that you can stay warm with one of those too.
Yeah,
So yeah, it doesn't
for
take
sure.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about photography and storytelling and capturing the essence of a trip? Do you always take a camera with you?
I always have my phone,
Yeah.
so that has the
Hmm.
camera in it. And sometimes I take pictures and sometimes I don't, like
Yeah. Right.
I don't I like to just be in that moment, right? And I
Hmm.
get done, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have had something that, to remember. Like I was in Saskatchewan and the Northern Lights were going off. And I actually got a couple good pictures of that,
Oh,
and
cool.
that was awesome. So I got, kind of a bucket list photo, which was cool.
Nice.
And then in my trip to Eastern Oregon, one of my buddies is a professional photographer, and he just followed me around while I was upland game hunting and took
Oh,
pictures with
wow.
me. So,
Cool.
um, that is such an amazing gift because I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could just do what I do, and he was capturing it for me.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of
which
times
were
that's me with the camera doing that. But the older I get, though, I don't take that stuff anymore because the phone does such a fantastic job. And these
yeah,
phones, the latest version of the Apple iPhone, you can print those, get those things to a decent size to print if you want to do, if you want prints.
yeah.
But most of us don't print photos anymore. We just want them for the memories.
And then, I mean, I think it's important also for me that I come back and I capture some piece of these trips and either write some poetry or write a story or
Mm-hmm.
like I'm gonna write a book that'll go along with the photos that Kelly took of me just because they're so gorgeous. I
Yeah,
want to
cool.
honor his photos of
Right,
me,
right. Yeah.
because and they're gonna get printed because they're amazing.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's
And
cool. It's good to have friends like that. Yeah.
yeah,
And some of these, these days you could create a mini book or a picture book or something for every trip. It's so easy to go online and, throw the photos up on there. And next thing you know, a week later, you got a book at your doorstep. So
yeah, the printing is
it's incredible.
yeah, it's only things we could dream of, 30 years ago.
Right.
There's no doubt.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have any road trip traditions that you use? Is there something that you always, preparation that you always do, or something that you always take, or a place this is my annual, I go here once a year, every year for 20 years I've been going, that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
I have a number of annual trips. So starts with I guess the season actually is
Yeah, it drives it. Yeah.
September is when the outdoor season starts for me, Labor Day. So
Yeah.
that's steelhead. Then we go goose hunting after that. Then we go upland hunting after that. Then we'll do the duck season, and then that goes until January. Then winter steelhead, and then turkey season.
Yeah.
Then the stonefly hatch.
Yeah. And then
And
deer season's in there somewhere, probably.
yeah, that's that. Then there's the smallmouth, and then we're back to Labor Day. So that's my general calendar that starts at September at Labor
Yeah.
Day. Yeah,
That's awesome. Yep, that's
yeah,
good. Yep, yep. Yeah, mine's kind of driven by that. I don't hunt much anymore. Mine's driven by the fishing and the weather, but I try to get out. I used to get out a lot, not as much as these days, but still at least a handful of times a year. I got to sleep under the stars. Just
yeah,
something about that, looking at the stars as you're nodding off to sleep, just really brings it all home.
yeah. And seeing, just like the hunter's moon in October, like
Yep.
seeing that
Hmm.
get big and then go away, and you're like, okay, we're in this part of the cycle of the year that
Yep.
humans have been dealing with for 15,000 years, and
Eons.
it's
Yep.
such a treat to be able to participate and be alive.
Yeah, it's fun to see the four different seasons when you're out there. You kind of can plan your road trips for spring, summer, fall, and winter, and it's different equipment, different things to do every season. But you're right, it's just so awesome. And to be sometimes on the shoulder seasons and be in the environment when it changes, that's pretty
Yeah.
fun too, I think. First
Yes.
rain or the first wind or, the fall leaves are falling. Yeah.
Like the camp that I have in Eastern Oregon, I get there, early October. The leaves on these trees are green. By the time I leave after 3 weeks, then it's been cold enough that all those leaves have
Cool.
fallen down and
Yeah.
it's officially fall. So,
Yeah, it's
um,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's powerful.
How many
Reminds us
secrets?
how
Yeah,
small we
yeah,
are.
small we are. Exactly. That's right. Yeah, yeah. How many secret spots do you have?
Oh boy. Well, I have a number of secret spots.
You probably have a secret spot in every place you go, right?
Yeah. And it has a kind of a dual meaning. The secret spot also is like the spot where I go every day to sit and reflect and
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
think
yeah.
about
Mm-hmm.
things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it has
Yep.
that dual meaning.
Your meditation
Um,
spot. Yep.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a handful, and there are a few spots that are my spots that I haven't told anybody about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
But they're
Mm-hmm.
usually just sit spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just a
Yeah.
tree or a rock or a creek, a spot on the creek that is meaningful to me or where I've had good realizations and I want to go back and do it again.
I have a bunch of those around town here in Bishop. Every
Yeah.
afternoon I kind of, grab a beer about 4:30 and head out, don't know where I'm going to go, but end up at one of those spots and crack the beer and, let the day fade away and,
Yeah.
just think and yeah, I love it. Yeah. I'm lucky to live in a beautiful space, a lot of public land, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, same out here. I mean, Nevada is like 80% public land.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah,
you got
yeah,
to do
yeah.
is get in the car and drive for 20 minutes and
Yeah, that's the
you got
same
a
within your
spot.
county.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice.
What about balancing work and play for those folks with busy schedules? I mean, you and I both, don't have a day job, so to speak, but we're both busy with our hobby jobs, if you will, and
Yeah.
you got to balance that out. Sometimes you got to suck it up. And like right now, I got two podcast episodes I got to crank out. It's always the case when the last two of the month or whatever, there's audio issues and things and
Oh yeah,
stuff I got to
right.
clean up. Or, oh, I didn't realize that happened. So it takes a
Oh,
little
it's
longer, but
classic.
yeah, it always is classic. Yeah. How do
Well,
you how do you balance that?
I think one thing is to, if you can, to manipulate your job so you can work remote. That's the first
There
secret.
you go. I agree. Yeah.
And then the second thing is Starlink. And that is really what has changed my life is that I've got a battery pack, a solar panel, Starlink, and I can work from everywhere now.
Yeah.
And I've
Hmm.
been, as remote as you can be where there's no cellular and no external Wi-Fi, and the Starlink is 400 megabytes a second. So
It's amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
I have it here
So
at the house, but do you have a mini that you travel with, or what do you have to
no,
travel?
I think it's Gen 2 or whatever,
Uh-huh.
But the first thing is to get that remote work
Yeah.
set up, right? And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
and then once you
Yeah.
have that, then take the time to plan and build your calendar around the things that are important to you.
Hmm.
That's the secret.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah. And there's, like you say, Starlink, and sometimes though, I've been out without internet, and surprisingly, if you plan well, you can get a lot of the stuff because generally we're content creators, right? So you can go create the content and then come home and put it all together and upload it. You don't have
Yeah,
to do everything out there or everything at home.
no,
You
it's
know.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's freed me up to where I can be on the road for 5 weeks and not miss a
Yeah.
beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have this Starlink here at the house, and I haven't taken it on the road yet, but I've thought about it. I probably should just try that one time just to see how it works.
Just to get the correct battery pack, right? That's
Yeah,
the
exactly. That's
biggest
the
thing.
power. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And what about learning from the locals? Do you often, we talked about going into the fly shop, but
Yeah.
I kind of hesitate to bother other people when they're fishing and things, but a lot of times you walk by a guy and he says, yeah, no, you're from out here. Yeah. Oh, pick his brain. You do that a lot?
Yeah, I do. I think that's part of the fun of it.
Part of the
Um,
brotherhood of it or the community of it too, right? You always got to pick the brain of the locals.
yeah, and you can tell who the guys are that want to have a conversation and the
Uh-huh.
guys that
Uh-huh.
don't want to. That's the first thing, right?
That's right. That's right.
And yeah, so yeah, I think that's important to be connected to the people who live there and
Hmm.
share information, get information, and be willing to contribute, right?
Yeah, yeah, you got to do both. Yeah, and I think and your home waters, right? A lot of times I'm out fishing here, and I help people out. Like yeah,
Sure.
no, you don't want to be fishing with no one else. Throw a caddisfly on there, and
Yeah.
you'll be fine. Whatever it is, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
good.
so like I just had a situation where I'm in Eastern Oregon. I go to the barber. I gave him some books, some coloring books for him to that I had produced to give to the kids. And he gave one to a landowner who then got in touch with me and let me hunt on private property.
Oh, cool.
So it was a nice little,
Hmm.
kismet there, and that kind of reinforces my willingness to participate in the local community even when I'm traveling.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's all about community, and all these places, some of these off the beaten path places, they tend to be a little more close knit because they want to keep their community tight. But once you show that, you're just like them, and you're not gonna, you're gonna care for it the way they do, they open right up, and it's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's like that
that's
guy we got in Ireland to take us fishing. That was amazing. But if we were a
yeah.
bunch of knuckleheads, he wouldn't have taken us fishing.
Yeah, if you had met him in the pub, it would have been different.
Probably not. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So what do you think about the future of road trips? Do you think they're going to continue? We're going to go on road trips forever? I know I am as long as I live, but I
I
don't know about
think it's
everybody
part of the
else.
human spirit, right?
I think you're right.
We want to go and adventure and see the strange and go someplace where we haven't been before and experience things. And so, yeah, I think it's especially with all the access and all the great gear and
Yeah.
all the information, like any activity that somebody's involved in, whether it's rock climbing or kayaking or hunting and fishing, they have access to all the information about where to
Yeah.
go and what to do and be aspirational about getting out of town and getting a new experience.
Yeah, and I think there's something ancestral about it too, because we don't go long distances to get our food anymore or travel from winter home
Right.
grounds to summer home grounds like we used to. There's none of that back and forth that
Yeah.
I think it's ingrained in us. So I think the camping and getting out is just part of that too. I got to go out at least once a month for a weekend or something, and I feel like I'm pent up when I don't.
I like that. Yeah, it is. It is something that's what the migration. We
Right.
used to go back and forth. Yeah, that's a good
Hmm.
point.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, we got to get off the screens. We got to do something that's
Yeah.
outside and
Yeah.
experience things in the physical body. So, yeah, humans will keep doing this. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Well, as I always say, make time to get outside.
I agree. Get nature bound.
There you go. Get nature bound. There you go. We both have two good slogans. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you. I'm glad we made this plan, and I hope everybody appreciates it. And we'll come up with something else to talk about in the future.
All right. It's awesome. Thanks a lot, Rick. It was fun.